King's Indian attack. This was one of Bobby Fischer's favorite opening. If you think you're just stronger than the average person and you're not in the mood to do a lot of bunch of opening prep and then it trappy lines, just play the King's Indian attack. All you need to do is put your bishop to g2, get your king out the center, and then like you could play this against anything that they play. This is the whole setup that you're going for, and it's like a King's Indian defense, which is the most aggressive line against d4, but you play it with the white pieces, which means you're ahead by a tempo. They usually show a lot of different variations, but this is literally all you need to know. Once you get to this position, you could put your pawn on c3, the queen on c2, play the pawn to e4. That's all you need to beat everyone at chess. I'm about to walk you through from 500 to 2000, showing you all the opening moves, all the middle game plans, the end game technique, and how to play the King's Indian attack. If you watch the full video, apply the stuff that I teach, your ratings will go through the roof. Kicking things off in the 500 region. Today I'm going to be showing you guys the King's Indian attack. This is something that you could play against literally anything black plays. Very simple plan. Step one is just to get the king out the center of the board. Doesn't matter what they play. All we're doing is getting the king out the center of the board. That's step one. Now, what's step two? Step two is to play e4. But if we play e4, he's going to take. So first we like to play d3, put the knight on d2, then play e4. He's developing. Let's continue with the plan. e4 is coming next. Now we play e4, and after this, it's just a matter of playing a few prophylactic moves. For example, this move pawn c3, you always want to play a move like c3 if you're going to be playing the King's Indian attack, because it just prevents any pieces from coming to the d4 or the b4 square. He plays e5, and eventually we could now try to play f4. Like once they have a pawn on e5, we should play f4, take with the g pawn, and then we just have a very nice attack. With that being said, we need to find somewhere for this knight. He got his king out the center of the board. And before we try to start the attack, let's just get the pieces as on good squares as possible. I'm going to play a4. What's the purpose of a4? The purpose of a4 is to prevent b5. And why are we trying to prevent b5? Because we want to put the knight on the c4 square. So now he's not able to play b5, and we have a very strong knight on c4. Okay, he's developing his bishop. Once a piece is on our half of the board, we know exactly what we're going to do. Let's just chase that bishop out of our half. Then once he take, I'm going to take back the queen. Eventually, the plan is to play f4. So I'm going to pull the queen back to e2, play f4, and that will be the beginning of our attack. Okay, rook to b8, that's a sign that he wants to play b5. But if he plays b5, I'm just going to take. So let's just continue with our plan. f4 is coming. Oh, he plays b6. Like, my knight is now so strong on c4, targeting both his weak backward b6 pawn and his d6 pawn. Now I'm going to play f4 with my attack. Anytime they take, we take with the pawn, by the way. And if they don't take, we're able to play f5, and then we're going to just launch the pawns against their king. When he plays b5, like this is just how you waste time in chess. Like, why would you play b6 just to play b5? Like, the pawn is able to move 2 squares, bro. And after the rook takes, again, he's not able to take my knight. I'm going to hit him with f5, and I'm going to launch the attack on his king. Okay, that was a slip. That was a slip. Because I know that it was a slip, I'm not going to penalize him. So let's just play f5 and continue with the attack. And then I'm going to give him the chance to take the pawn. And then we continue with the attack. I'm not trying to win like that versus my fellow viewers. Now we play pawn to g4, and the attack has begun. Here comes the King's Indian attack. Okay, he's afraid of the pawns coming in, so he plays h6, but that doesn't change anything. We're still going to go g5, because now if he takes and then my bishop takes, it pins his knight to the queen, and that's going to be a very annoying pin. He took. Let's just take back, and yeah, this pin is going to be so annoying for him, especially that the pin is there. I'm now thinking of playing knight e3 to d5 and apply as much pressure to this pinned knight as possible. He took, which is also not good, because now my rook is able to take, and we already have 2 pieces applying pressure to that pinned knight. This is like peak PP on the PP. The plan from here is to play rook to f1, and then I'm going to have 3 pieces attacking this knight. I think he's going to lose the knight. There's no way he's going to be able to save that knight. e5. Okay, hits the knight. That's bad though, because the knight isn't even guarding the pawn. The queen isn't even guarding the pawn. That's a pawn, bro. What is he going to play here? Knight takes and lose the queen? Or queen takes and lose the queen? Knight back to e7. No, I have two pieces attacking the knight. He only has one defender. I am going to play rook takes f6 because after bishop takes f6, this knight is going to be pinned to the queen. So he is at risk of getting checkmated. And a knight and a bishop is better than a rook. Okay, the funny thing is, he didn't decide to take back the rook, but he decided to lose even more material. Why? Because my bishop is on the same line as the queen, which means now we're able to do something called a discovered attack. All of these types of tactics will be available in my book. If you don't know that I'm writing the book, okay, bro, that's just a queen. And you guys are going to learn the entire King's Indian attack in the theoretical video that I have on my Patreon. If you want to get access to that, the link is in the description and it will also be available on the channel memberships. Now we took with the rook, and from here we just bring our rook in the game, bring the queen in the game, and then deliver the checkmate. And he resigns. More King's Indian attack against 600 level players. Stick around. Opponent is now 600. Let's play some more King's Indian attack. Same plan. Looks like it's going to be a guys, it's a King's Indian attack versus a King's Indian defense. So he could literally just mirror all the moves that I make. It looks like that. Is that what he's really doing? Okay, that's not what he's doing. That's not what he's doing. All right. So usually when this happens, I just like to ensure that I have full control over the center of the board. So I'm actually going to play e4 here because he's not really applying a lot of pressure to this pawn just yet. And then once the bishop goes here and then he is applying a lot of pressure to the pawn, then I'll simply defend it. Okay, I mean, already the guy's breaking principles. Like, why move the same piece more than once in the opening stage of the game? I guess he's afraid of me playing e5, but come on, bro. You can't be doing all of that. Now I'm just going to play h3. Remember, once a piece is on our half of the board, we chase those pieces out. Now he just has to put the knight back on f6, which is weird. Unless he's planning on putting the knight on h6, which means by moving the same piece more than once in the opening, you're wasting time. So if the knight goes back to f6, it's going to be a case where he didn't make a move. It's my turn to move again, and I get the chance to play h3. Okay, so he pulls the knight back to f6, which means he wasted a lot of moves. My bishop is on the same line as this rook, so I'm wondering if there's a world where I could play e5. After takes knight move, I could play e6, double up the pawns, knight g4, attack e6 and the rook. And if he saves this rook, we take on e6 and then he's forked on e6. That would be a very nice idea. So he took, let's take back. Okay, he's also able to just put the knight in the center, but then I'm able to play c4 though, and that's going to force his knight out the center of the board. So that's what he did. So first thing I'm going to do is play c4. Let's just force the knight out the center. I'm also trying to force the knight off of this diagonal, and then once the knight move, we play e6, sacrificing the pawn just to double up the pawns. I mean, he don't have to take, but if he doesn't take, then I could take. But my plan is once he takes, now we hit him with knight g5, and the plan is working perfectly. If he moves this rook, he's forked. If he plays some weird looking move and he's not aware that his rook is going to be under attack, then he loses an entire rook. He saw that the rook was under attack, but he's still forked. The only score for the queen here, by the way. I think I have something here, guys. I think I could try to win his queen. Look at this. The threat is better than the execution. That's a free pawn, and I could grab the rook. We ignore everything and attack his rook. Well, his knight. Because his knight is covering this d5 square. I'm seeing a world where I could take on c7. I mean, if the queen goes back, we fork and then take the rook. Well, or he could just be a very kind person and just give me a free knight. No, I'm not going to take the knight just yet because my knight is under attack. So first, let's grab the rook. And then once he takes back, then we take the free knight. And then his knight is under attack. So we just won a whole entire rook, guys. And his knight is under attack. I could still play moves like bishop to d5. But let's see where he puts his knight. Okay, back to e6. No, that's just a free pawn because my rook was always on this file. Well, once I take, the rook gets the open file. Well, he's attacking some pressure. He's applying some pressure to my f-pawn. He's attacking it twice, I'm guarding it twice, so I'm fine. With the bishop being on my half of the board, it's important that I try to get rid of it. So moving the knight to b3, I automatically have two pieces attacking his bishop. He only has one defender, so come on, bro. You have to know how to count, bro. You have two attackers. I have two defenders. So you're just giving me a free bishop. Now he has to move the queen and, maybe I'm going to pin his knight or something. Okay, he saw that. He moves the queen out of the way. Now we pin the knight. I have one attacker. He has one defender, which means my plan is to add more attackers to the knight. Guys, you have to learn how to count, man. Like, especially at the 600 level. Like, I mean, 600 is not too high, but you could be playing a lot better than this, bro. Because simple counting is chess fundamentals. H6 doesn't really do much. We have the knight pinned. What do we do when a piece is pinned? We apply pressure to that pin piece. And I'm going to play knight d4, yes. And maybe you're like, bro, isn't the guy attacking the square twice? Yes, but the knight is pinned. And remember, pin pieces does not protect. So the knight on e6 isn't covering the d4 square, which means if he thinks he's being slick and then take on d4, my queen is just going to take on d4. And it's going to be an illegal move for him to try to take on d4. So he moves the king out the way. But now I'm right in time to take. Let's choose to take with the knight, hit the queen. If bishop takes, we take, and we're threatening to pin the queen. Nice. Now we're threatening to pin the queen. The queen and the rook is on the same line. I'm covering the f7 square. Bro, that's a queen. He resigns. More Kings Indian attack against 700 rated players. Stick around. Opponent is now 700. Let's play some more Kings Indian attack. E5, let's just go G3. We know the regular drill. Like, what we're trying to do is first get our king to safety, first and foremost. And then once the king is safe, then we do step two. Whenever they play E5, it means they're trying to play E4 and force us to move the knight so many times. And that's why we want to play the move pawn to D3, preventing them from playing E4, and then we simply get the king out of the center of the board. Another purpose of D3 is to get the knight to D2. And I'm happy that somebody plays E4 here because I'm sure somebody would ask, what if they still play E4? Here's the reason why. Once we take on E4, taking back is bad because able to take the queen, and it doesn't really matter how he decides to take. This time he decides to take with the knight, but his pawn on E4 is just too weak. Here I'm going to go knight d4. Usually the move is knight g5, but pawn to f5 is definitely a possibility. So I'm just going to centralize the knight. And then once he plays knight f6, what do we do here? The whole idea is to win this pawn. So here's what I'm going to do. I have one attacker. He has one defender. I'm going to simply develop my knight and apply more pressure to this pawn. Now he develops his bishop, which means if I try to take the pawn, I'm going to lose my knight. But there's a very cool idea to regain the tempo on a bishop whenever the bishop attacks the knight. We're able to simply pull the knight back, hit the bishop, which means I'm hitting the unprotected bishop and I'm attacking e4 twice. Okay, he guarded the bishop. If I take the bishop, then he's going to be guarding e4. So let's just focus on winning the pawn first. So let's take, and then once the knight take, we take, and just like that, we won the pawn. Okay, he didn't trade. He decided to pull the bishop back, but that wasn't too good, bro. Because, okay, I'm ahead by a pawn. It doesn't matter what you're ahead by. You still want to trade. So I'm going to trade. Not only do I win the pawn, but once he takes, I'm able to develop my bishop to h6, prevent his king from castling, and then eventually I'm planning on castling. So maybe he's going to want to castle on the queen side now, but moving the bishop is also a blunder. He did move the bishop, and this is why I try to stress the word drawback so much, guys. Like, I don't want you guys to watch my videos and don't know what the drawback principle is. And everybody's like, create a merch or something. I don't know how to do all of that. But if I was to do something like that, then drawback has to be in it because this helps persons so much to win more games. Because think about it like this. The drawback principle, not only does it help you to blunder less, it also helps you to spot the opponent's blunders. So imagine players below 2000. The only reason, not the only reason, obviously, but one of the main reasons why they lose is because of blunders. And one of the main ways how people blunder is the drawback principle. So just by understanding this part of chess, your chess is gonna take a 360. Okay, knight g5 was played, hit the bishop, we don't care, we're ahead by 2 pawns. Plus, he has an unprotected rook. He has an unprotected pawn. They are both on the same diagonal. Hit him with bishop to g7, hit the rook, hit the pawn. We're winning even more material. The rook moves out the way. Let's grab the pawn. Now we're ahead by 3 whole pawns. And okay, he took the bishop. We definitely have to take back. And you could say he has the bishop here. He definitely has the bishop here. Now he's trying to run away with his king, but let me just get my king out the center of the board. And especially this pawn on f3, I'm sure he wants to attack it with his bishop. But once I'm able to play king g2, it will be guarded safely. Okay, so the rook is now on the file. Let's put our rook on the file as well. I mean, we're ahead in material. We would love to trade some pieces off the board. All right, so he's hitting my pawn, right? But remember, what do we do once we're ahead in material? We trade. So, I mean, before I protect the pawn, let's just get the other rook in the game because it's very important that all the pieces are in the game. And what I'm doing here is I'm setting up a checkmate. So if he thinks he's able to just take the free pawn, then he's going to be getting checkmated in the next move. Ah, he attacks the bishop. All right, not too bad. Still trying to trade some pieces off the board. So let's just trade. He has to play bishop takes, by the way. If he plays king takes, then rook to d8 ends the game. And after he plays bishop takes, I'll pull my bishop back to... Okay, he plays king takes, guys. And this is just a simple checkmate in one. With that being said, we're going to be playing more King's Indian attack against 800 level players. Stick around. Opponent is now 800. We're playing some more King's Indian attack. So d5, all I'm going to do is get my king out the center of the board. That's the first thing. We know exactly what's happening here. First thing is out the way. Now what's the second thing? We want to play d3 so that way he's not able to play e4, and then we play knight d2. And then the whole idea is so that way we're able to play e4. Now if you want the whole King's Indian attack theory, it will be on my Patreon. The link is in the description. But from here, all we're doing on YouTube is just playing games so that way you see what could happen. All right, he got his king out the center of the board. Pawn c3, very useful move in the King's Indian attack. Eventually, I could take and play knight c4. Okay, he took. Here, I'm going to take with the knight. If you take with the pawn, it's also fine, by the way. But sometimes I like to take with the knight so that way, I could just put my bishop on e3 freely. And then he goes queen d7. Once you see queen d7, they're trying to put their bishop on h3, but I'm not really afraid of that. Like, it doesn't really do anything because my bishop on g2 is it's not the best bishop right now. So let's just use the time to finish our development. Yup, he went with his plan, and because the bishop no longer covers the b3 square, I'm going to play queen b3 and attack his unprotected pawn, which means my rooks are now connected, and from here I'm just trying to get the rooks on the file. He took, we have to take back, and now the plan is to get the rooks on the open files. He guarded the pawn, very good. Let's get the rook in the game, putting the rook on the same line as the queen. Okay, he's trying to trade the queens off the board. Do I even want to trade queens with this guy? Like, if I take the queen and he takes back, that's going to be the ugliest double pawn, and I'm going to be able to slowly grind out the endgame. But let's keep the queens on the board and play queen to a4. Since we're playing the King's Indian attack, I'm going to try to attack him. Okay, f6 was played, and there's a very interesting move that I have here. Rook to d5. Now, before I play rook to d5, I want to tell you guys, my intention is to play rook to d2. I want to play rook to d2, rook to d1, and double up on the file. But first, I'm going to play rook to d5. And if he's like, okay, why can't I just attack his rook? Then I play rook to d2. And in the process of doing that, he moves the knight away from protecting the pawn. So he still has to waste one more move to protect the pawn. So if he puts the knight back on c6, then he's just going to be wasting time. Yep, he's going for it. Let's go rook d2. And if he puts the knight on c6, it's kind of like the same position, but I already started with rook d2, and it's going to be my turn to move in the same position with rook to d2. So let's see what he plays here, because now a7 is under attack. He puts the knight back. So you see what just happened, guys? You see how there's some very cool ways in chess to actually gain time. It's like I earned an extra move, because I could actually just start by playing rook to d2 here, and then it would be his turn to play. But it's the same position, but it's my turn to play. And now I'm going to double up the rooks on the d file. Okay, he's doing the same. He's putting his rook on the file. I like the idea of playing knight h4. Like, I'm threatening to put my knight on the f5 square, and if he plays g6, we're doing what is called provoking a weakness. Like, once he does that, I'm going to have to pull my knight back, but I'm basically forcing him, well, not necessarily forcing him, but I'm provoking him to push a pawn on the side that his king is on. If he doesn't, then my knight gets the f5 square. All right, so he wasn't provoked, but I'm still going to put my knight on the f5 square to hit the bishop. If he takes, I'm just going to take back. He's definitely not playing badly though. Like, I don't think I have any huge advantage here. I just think my rook is better than his rook. My knight is better than his knight. Bishop is also better than his bishop, but I think the queens are the same. Okay, so he plays a6. I'm going to set up some ideas here. g4 protects the knight. Or do I just play immediate rook to d5? This is my initial plan, but kind of feel weird that my pawn is overworked. But I mean, he's not able to touch any of them though. Okay, so he moves the bishop to d6. Not gonna take. Definitely not gonna take. I want to set up some tactics here. I'm gonna start with queen to b3. Like putting my queen on the same line as his queen and his king should lead us to somewhere. Now I'm thinking about sacrificing my rook, or maybe if he moves the bishop, I check and then win his queen. Like none of it is working, by the way, but let's see. Like maybe because all my pieces are this good, he could blunder. Did we get him? Knight e7 we take with check. If he takes with the queen, we get this covered attack. If he takes with the bishop, we still get this covered attack and we win the game. And this is why sometimes you have to set up your own tactics. Very nice move here. Knight takes e7. And any move that he plays, he's going to be losing material next move. Because if he takes with the bishop, because okay, he took with the queen, which means now my queen is on the same line as his king, and we're about to do what is called a discovered attack, where we move the piece out the way. Keep in mind the queen is doing the check. So, okay, I was about to take on e5, but he's just going to block with the queen. So let's just take on d6. The queen checks the king. We grab the free bishop. Now he has to, I mean, he could block with the queen, but he didn't. He puts his king on the same line as his queen. So now I'm thinking of some ideas of putting my bishop here. So what I'm going to do is pull the rook one square back. Now I'm protecting the c5 square, setting up one more tactics. He attacks the rook and we get him again. Because the queen is on the same line as the king, bishop to c5. Now this is called pin. And just like that. I mean, the guy was playing very well though, but now it's just game. He decides to sack the queen. Let's just grab the queen. We're ahead by a whole entire queen here. And he resigns. More King's Indian attack against 900 level players. Stick around. Opponent is now 900. We're going to be playing some more Kia, King's Indian attack. They call it Kia though. Pawn c5, we know what the first step is. Let's just get the king out the center of the board. That's the plan. Now the king is out the center. And now we know what the second step is. The second step is to play d3, followed by putting the knight on the d2 square. So he plays d6. Let's continue with the plan. Knight is now on d2. And now we play e4. We took. Let's just take back. And usually in these positions, we play c3 to ensure that there's no knight coming to the d4 square. And bishop to g4 pins the knight. Usually it's good to just play h3 and just hit the bishop. Like there's nothing wrong with that. And he's also going to be giving us the bishop here. So that's good if he decides to take. Okay, he did take. Let's just take back. Eventually, I'm going to pull my bishop back to g2. But for now, let's just go queen b3, attacking the unprotected pawn. Eventually, I want to get a rook on the d file. And I need to get my dark squared bishop out. Okay, he guarded the pawn. And here I'm going to play a move, pawn to a4. This is a very important move when it comes to the King's Indian attack, because if we want to put a knight on the c4 square, we don't want them to be able to play pawn to b5. Now, I will be explaining the full theory of this on my Patreon. You can also find it on the channel memberships. The link is in the description. Queen to d7 was played. He is attacking my unprotected pawn. Let's just pull the bishop back. And then he moves the queen again. Not bad though. Maybe he wants to play knight here, but that doesn't really do much. So let's just finish our development. Minor pieces are out. King is castled. Rooks are connected. Time to start the attack. We also need the rooks on the open files. A6. He wants to play b5. Takes. My knight is going to be under attack. Okay, that's fine though. Let's just keep getting more pieces in the game. Like once he plays this and I take, I can always put my knight on the a4 square. And the moment he moves this pawn, his c5 pawn is going to be unprotected. So b5 hits the knight. Let's just take. And then now once he takes, we play the move knight a5. If he trades the queen, we take with the knight. If he takes my knight, I first take the queen. double up his pawns, then we take this knight. And then his pawn on c5 is going to be weak. All right, now we're attacking this pawn. So maybe he's going to push to not lose the pawn. And from here, the question is what to do with the knight. Do we play knight c5 or do we play knight a5? I like the idea of playing knight a5. It hits the unprotected knight. And if he takes, I take, and my rook is already active. Okay, he did take. Let's just take back. Then he plays rook to b7. Makes a lot of sense, by the way. He doesn't want my rook to have any access to his 7th rank. We're now in the end game, by the way. You know how important king activity is in the end game, so let's start getting the king active. He's doubling up the rooks on the b file. I think he wants to play b4. But I don't mind if he plays that move. Let's just play f4 here. His rook is on the same line as my bishop, and I'm attacking this unprotected pawn. And now once he takes, he should be in some trouble because my bishop is on the same line as his rook. So first I'm going to take with the bishop, attack his rook. Now we have the bishop here, by the way. And this is a good way for us to turn our light squared bishop into a good bishop, because whenever there's a pawn in the way and we can't move the pawn, it's going to be a bit hard for us. My plan from here, though, is to move the pawn to e5, attack his knight, and reveal the discovered attack on his rook. Okay, so the rook moves out the way, and I think it's over. No, it's not over. Because if I push, there's rook d7. And then once I takes, there's knight takes, and I'm not going to be able to take the knight because my rook is going to be unprotected. So that was a nice idea by him. Right, here's what we're going to do. Actually, it's a bit tricky. Let's play g4 to prevent knight h5. He's not able to take this pawn because he's going to be getting checkmated on the back rank. I'm assuming he's going to try to add as much pressure to my e4 pawn. But the moment he moves away this rook, I'm going to be able to attack his b pawn. What? Why would he sacrifice the knight like that? That's kind of crazy. That's just a knight, bro. What am I missing? That's a knight. And then he plays h6. Why wouldn't you just play h6 in one move then, than to give me the knight, then play h6? Oh well, let's just move the pawn out the way, discover the attack on the rook. He moves the rook, and now we're just ahead in material. So I'm just trying to trade pieces off the board now. Like that move, that move was not it at all, bro. Okay. Now he's trying not to trade, but it's too late now. We are going to be trading. We're going to be doing every trade we get. Now I'm going to put my rook on his 7th rank. And the plan from here is to go bishop to d5 and apply as much pressure to this weak f7 pawn. Okay, he's trying to get his king back in the game, but let's continue with the plan. bd5, attacking f7. He pushes the pawn. That doesn't change anything though. My plan wasn't actually to take the pawn. If he puts the king on g8, protecting the bishop, he's putting his king on the same line as my bishop. So he's going to be losing his rook to a discovered attack, which is why he resigned. More King's Indian attack against 1000 level players. Stick around. Our opponent is now 1000. We're playing some more King's Indian attack. Pawn d5, let's just go with our regular setup. Let's just get the king out the center of the board, first and foremost. What he plays isn't important. He's also trying to play his own version of the King's Indian defense, which is not bad. It's a good way to play. But this is basically the first setup that we're taking on. And because there's no forking ideas happening, we're not going to be playing queen to e1 here. So pawn c3, we have enough pieces covering e4. So let's just play the move pawn e4. 6. Okay, with e6, I should be able to go e5 with the knight. Knight moves d4, c3. Now I have a lot of space. But I'm not seeing how that helps. So let's just continue with the ideas. Pawn c3. c3 is a very multi-purpose move. It makes this bishop not as active. It prevents any pieces from going to the d4 and b4 square. It allows our queen access to the c2 square. And it allows us to play pawn to b4 in the future. Pawn b5 though. That move I'm not sure about. That move I'm not sure about. All right, let's just continue. Let's just go. All right, do we go queen c2 or queen e2? I don't think it matters too much. Let's put the queen on e2. Bishop a6 could be the only punishment for this. Putting his bishop on the same line as my queen. Pawn a5, I think he's definitely going to go bishop a6 then. Okay, slow, slight improvement. Very slow, slight improvement. Let's just get the rook over in the game. He also got his rook in the game. He's putting his rook on the same line as my queen. There's no real weaknesses in the opponent's position right now, so I'm not really seeing the attack. I'm thinking about e5 and d4. I'm just not sure when is the right time to do it, but I'm gonna do it now. There's a there's a Bobby Fischer game that I looked on where, because this was one of Bobby Fischer's favorite openings, and there's a game where he actually played h4 and g4 to attack the King's Indian defense structure. So I'm going to try that idea. So knight d7 I'm expecting, and then I may just play pawn d4, and I'm going to have a very nice long pawn chain here. All right, knight h5. We don't really want to put our knights on the edge of the board, sir. The knight already does not have a lot of squares. The thing is, if I try to play g4 now, his knight gets the f4 square. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to first move this knight out the way. Let's say we play knight f1, and this is usually a good square for the knight. Eventually, it can rejoin the game in a lot of different ways. But now I'm threatening to play pawn g4, and he's going to lose that knight. And that's why we don't put knights on the edge of the board. 6 was played, and this is where we're going to be winning that knight. I mean, if I takes, the knight goes back. The knight has no squares. That's the whole idea. So pawn to g4 is GG's. We just trapped the opponent's knight. We won the knight, which means we're going to win the game. On f5, okay. I mean, he knows he's about to lose material, so he plays f5. I could even play bishop g5 first, just to develop, hit the queen, force him to react. But that is a knight, so let's just grab the knight. We can always go bishop to g5 after, and then hit the queen. It's funny because my opponent played a lot of unnecessary pawn moves. Like there's some of these pawn moves he didn't have to play because he has so many pieces on the background. He took. Remember when I told you guys how we're going to be getting this knight in the game? This is one of the ways. Knight g3. Now we're already hitting the pawn on h5. There's one thing that he could try, which doesn't work. Pawn to h4, hit the knight. But if he plays pawn h4, which is what he did, I'm able to hit him with bishop to g5, which is a fork, because now we're hitting the queen and we're attacking the unprotected pawn. So once he moves his queen out the way, we take the pawn, and that's just more material. So the queen moves, we grab the pawn. Okay, how do we take? I'm not sure how we take. Let's just take with the knight. If h6, the bishop goes back to f4. I could also play moves like queen h5, get my queen in the game. Knight h5 is also a very nice move. We're going to start a checkmating attack on the king now. We have so many pieces in the attack. Has to lead somewhere. So h6 we were expecting. We just, okay, bishop f6 is also a move. But let's just pull the bishop back. It would make more sense if I'm able to play knight h5, hit the bishop. Rook e7, hit the bishop. If the bishop move, well, if the bishop goes back, he hangs the pawn. If the bishop goes here, he hangs the queen. If he allows me to take the bishop, he could be losing this pawn. So he moves the rook, the king. We grab the bishop. He has to take with the king because now he takes with the rook. There's nothing guarding h6. The king and the rook is on the same line. Bishop takes h6, and now the rook is just pinned. And there's this thing that I like to remind you guys. If you're pinning someone's rook, do not take the rook until they try to get out of the pin. So now that he tries to get out of the pin, now we take the rook. And then, okay, he's going to try to run away with his queen. I'm going to bring even more pieces in the attack here. Let's go king to h1. Because all of a sudden, my rook, which wasn't really doing much, is now in the game. So now the rook is on the same line as the queen. So I'm assuming he has to get his queen off of that line. And then I'm thinking of moves like queen h5. There's also some knight g6 ideas. Okay, he didn't move the queen off the same line as the rook, guys, which means you're about to learn a discovered attack. These are the types of tactics that I want you guys to send me. And in the explanation, you could just be like, rook is on the same line as the queen. Okay, it's tricky because now if I takes, there's queen takes. Who cares though, right? I'm trying to trade, bro. Let's just take on d5. If queen takes, I could even check. But I'm trying to trade. I think check is fine. But just to keep the position simple, I'm ahead by 6 points. Why complicate? That was a nice move or a nice try because now my bishop and my knight is under attack. If I move the bishop, I lose the knight. Move the knight, I lose the bishop. But we have an in-between move, and that's the move knight g6. So first we hit the queen, save the knight, force the queen to move. Then we pull the bishop back. And that's assuming that his next queen move is going to be guarding the pawn on e6. So if he doesn't guard the pawn on e6, then we just take the free pawn. Okay, he didn't guard the pawn. That's another pawn. Yeah, this is not just a beatdown. There's pawn c5 that I didn't even briefly look on it. And I should have, because his bishop is on the same line as my king. But luckily, I'm able to play f3. So if he plays c5, I have f3, and I'm fine. Okay, he pulls the knight back. We are all for the trades. So let us trade. I'm ahead by so many points. King takes was played. There's this rook check, which doesn't work because it allows king to e7. So let's just play. Oh no, that's kind of weird. Yeah, that's bad. Queen e3 is bad. Okay, let's keep trading. Let's just keep trading. Check, king moves, and then we just grab the rook. Now we grab the rook. This bishop is hanging, and I'm just going to take another free pawn. I mean, this is resignable, to be honest. Okay, he moves the queen, didn't even take. Maybe he's setting up some little tricks. He's setting up some little tricks. Not seeing the trick that he's setting up, though. Now I save my rook and I pin his bishop. And I knew he would have checked. I knew he would have checked. He thinks it's mate. That's why he puts the queen here. Because he's like, oh, the king is not able to move. First of all, bro, I'm able to block the check with the pawn. Second of all, the bishop is the piece that is checking my king, which means I am able to take the bishop and get out of a check with a check. And no, he's not able to take my bishop because his king and his queen is going to be on the same line, which is what he did. But no, we play rook b6, and we're also just winning the queen. He moves the king. Do we have mate? I'm not seeing the mate, but let's just grab the queen, maybe even roll the pawn up the board. And he resigns. More Kings Indian attack against 1100 rated players. Stick around. Opponent is now 1100. We're still going to be playing some Kings Indian attack. And okay, let's just get the king out the center. That's what we're doing. And now we play d3 followed by knight d2. And then we know what the idea is. The whole idea is to play pawn to e4. Right now, he has one, two, three pieces on e4. We only have one piece on e4, so we're not able to play e4 just yet. So let's just play pawn c3. Very useful move, preventing any of his pieces to make any progress. And then he plays e5. Okay, e5 is usually a slight mistake, and if you guys watch my Pyrrhic defense video, you'll see why e5 is usually a mistake here. Because what my whole idea is to take on e5, and then once the knight takes on e5, we play pawn d4. And that's going to be a fork. And it doesn't mean that we're winning or anything. It just means that we're going to have more pawns in the center. Well, not necessarily more pawns in the center, because he has one and I'm going to have one. And by the way, guys, I know that you're seeing me playing the games, but if you want the actual theory where I explain the full theory, then the link is in the description to my Patreon. Knight takes c5 was played. And how do we continue to improve our position? I mean, my king is castled, his king is not. Let's go knight b3. If knight takes, queen takes, and his pawn is under attack. Okay, so he did take. Let's take it the pawn. And now all I need to do to complete my development is to move this bishop. He thought I was attacking this pawn. I wasn't attacking that pawn, bro. I was attacking this pawn. That's just an unprotected pawn. And just like that, we're ahead by a pawn. Also, is he not going to castle his king? You have to castle your king, bro. He finally castled the king. Let's finally develop our last piece, developing the bishop, and we're applying more pressure to his c pawn. So I'm assuming he's going to move the pawn to c5 here in order to guard it. Oh, yeah. The move that I just played is a bit suspicious. I wasn't aware of the fact that I'm leaving b2 unprotected. So now he's able to try rook b8. If he plays that, though, I may take this pawn. And then after he takes, I take the other pawn. But then he's able to take my pawn. And usually when you're on the winning side, you don't want to be trading the pawns off the board. Not sure why he plays c6, though. Like, maybe he just don't want me to put one of my pieces on the c7 square. Definitely not trying to defend the pawn, because that's still a free pawn. Okay, the rook is hitting my queen. Let's just pull the queen back to a4. We're ahead by 2 pawns here. I'm attacking his unprotected pawn. My rooks are connected, but they're not really doing anything. There's only one file on the board, and that's the d file. Well, now that he plays c4, I could play this move. Well, now that he puts the rook there, he's not able to take due to the spin. And if I push the pawn to c5, then we have a pass pawn. Or if I have to take on d5, then there's going to be 2 files on the board. For example, he moves the queen out the way. Now we put the rook on the same line as the queen. And again, he's not able to take because the bishop is on the same line as the rook. Okay. He wants me to take, and then queen takes, and then the knight jumps in, and then I mated. But those attacks are not going to work. What I'm about to do is called a discovered attack, where because my rook is on the same line as the queen, we take the pawn on d5. And once we take the pawn, his queen is going to be under attack. He also has to ensure that he keeps his bishop guarded. And I'm just not going to take. Like maybe he's going to take, but I'm not going to take. So he moves the queen. Let's just continue with the attack though. Pawn to e4, hit the queen again. I have two pieces guarding. He only has two pieces attacking. So I don't mind if he takes because he's just going to be losing the knight. So he moves the queen over to h3. All right, now it's a bit tricky because he's threatening to put the knight on g4, then take on g2, and then checkmate on h2. What I'm going to do here, though, is play the move pawn to f3. This is called the principle of limitation, where it's not neutralization, but limitation basically means you don't allow the pieces to be on your half of the board in the first place. Whoa, I played rook to b8. Guess he didn't see my dark squared bishop. That's a rook, bro. Okay, so he took with the rook. Now I'm trying to take the free pawn, and if he takes my pawn, his back rank is too weak. So let's just grab the pawn, hit the rook, forcing the rook to move. I'm trying to set up some back rank checkmates now. Yeah, but we're ahead by 6 whole points, so this should just be game over. Okay, moves the rook out the way. This rook isn't really doing much. So let's just get the rook in the game. And then the plan from here is to start roll this pass pawn up the board. Remember that rooks belong behind the pass pawn. So once you have a pass pawn, put the rook behind, and then it's going to be very easy for you to roll that pawn up the board. Okay, so the bishop takes. Once the bishop takes, we simply take with the king. And from here, I'm just going to roll the pawn up the board. h6 was played, doesn't really do anything. Let's start pushing the pawn. He has nothing here, by the way. Okay, he moves the rook over. Let's just continue rolling the pawn. If he takes, I'm just going to take back. And the plan from here is to go... Okay, he's trying to check here. We have to be careful. We have to look on the possible... I don't think it works. Well, let's not allow anything. Rook here prevents any check that he has. If he plays rook takes, then okay. He's trying to trade some pieces off the board. Unless if he takes and then I takes knight. No, if rook takes and I take, queen check. But then at that point, I just move the king and he has no more checks on my king. Yep, he took. Let's take. And if he check on e2, which he didn't, okay, first thing I'm going to do is let's just pull the queen back all the way back to f2, just to ensure that he has nothing. Maybe if I can put my queen on c2, but I just put his knight on c5. I have two pieces covering that square. That's a piece, bro. And then he pulls his queen back to b6. I guess he's trying to make the video as instructive as possible. We're about to do, he resigns. More Kings Indian attack against 1200 level players. Stick around. Opponent is now 1200. Let's play some more Kings Indian attack. On to g3 is the plan, and regardless of what they do, we're just going to be getting our king out the center of the board. Unless they play pawn to e5, that is, because if they play pawn to e5, we don't want them to play e4 and attack the knight, so we're going to play d3 to prevent e4, and then we're just going to get the king castled. So the first part of the plan is finished. Our king is safe on move 5. The bishop is developed. Now we develop the knight. And then what do we do after we develop the knight? We play pawn to e4. And remember, we don't really care too much about blocking in our bishop. The bishop is going to come in the game later on. So he's developing. Let's just move the pawn to e4 here. And then he did not take. Now, remember the plan of action here, guys. Whenever you see a structure like this, your goal is to have a pawn on the f4 square, because this is how you're going to be able to attack them. So I'm just thinking about possible ways to move my knight out the way, so that way I'm able to play f4, and putting the knight on g5 is just one way to do it. Once the bishop move, we just play f4. If takes, I just take back. Anytime they attack my knight, I just go back. So there's always knight h4 and knight e1, by the way, but I'm choosing to put the knight on g5 here because I'm also attacking his bishop. Now, he may not move that bishop, but if you don't move the bishop, we take the bishop. And if you look on both of his bishops, either the light squared bishop or the dark squared bishop, you're going to notice that the light squared bishop is actually his good bishop. So he's actually giving us his good bishop here. He defended it with the queen. Let's just grab the bishop. And then once the queen takes, the plan is to play f4. I don't want to just do it right now though. Let's put the knight on c4, hitting the bishop. And remember this idea, when the knight is on c4, they're gonna want to play moves like b5 to hit the knight. So if you're able to play a move like a4 to prevent them from playing b5, then that's a good move. It saves the bishop. Now we play a4. This is called prophylaxis, where we know what the opponent's plan is, we know what the opponent's idea is, and we're just trying to prevent it. Where is he going to get his king castled? He castled on the king side. Now we play f4. And I want you guys to notice how we're not really developing the dark squared bishop right now. Eventually, you could just put the bishop on d2 if you're trying to get your rooks in the game. But usually, the bishop stays on like this diagonal. And once it's at the perfect moment, you'll see some sacrificial ideas on h6. Once they take, it's usually best to take with the pawn. We have very, very good control over these squares with all of these pawns. And now our light squared bishop is now active because the center of the board is now mobile, which means moves like pawn to e5, hitting the knight is a possibility. F5 hitting the queen is a possibility. But whenever you have pawns like this, it's good to just keep them there and then just finish a development first. Build up the attack first, no need to rush to push any of these pawns unless it really works, because every move that black plays, he has to think about what happens if he moves the pawn, what happens if he moves the pawn. Right, queen g4, no. Queen g4 doesn't do much. And I mean, do I even want to trade the queens? If I take, the knight takes, pawn e4, but then his knight is always able to go back to h6. So I don't really get anything from doing that. So I'm just going to move my queen to, eventually I'm going to put the queen on f2, I think, and then move the king to h1, then play rook to g1, and then he's going to be forced to move his queen away. So that's one idea that I have. But yeah, let's keep the queens on the board. We're playing the king's Indian attack, so no need to trade right now. The queen is on our half of the board, so we have to neutralize that queen eventually. Knight b4 is definitely an annoying move. If knight b4 though, queen to f2 guards the pawn. I'm also thinking of c3, but if I play c3, then d3 is going to be left unprotected. Don't really like that. I want to play king h1, rook g1, or king h1, bishop f3. He puts his rook on the same line as my queen. Guy knows his stuff. Let's get my king off the same line as his queen. And now bishop f3 is now an idea. Rook to g1 is now an idea. Yep. He played the annoying move. The plan was to play queen to f2 anyways to guard the pawn. I'm attacking his pawn on d4, but if I dare to touch d4, my c pawn is going to be left unprotected. If I play c3, I lose the d pawn. If I play bishop to d2, I lose the c pawn. It's actually a bit weird here. Like, his knight on b4 is a very strong piece. And then he plays c5 to cement the knight on the b5 square. Like, the guy's basically saying, I will never move that knight out the way. Okay, let's play rook g1. Let's put our rook on the same line as his queen and the king. I'm expecting him to move the queen out the way now, though. Right, so he definitely moved the queen out the way, but we still have some ideas. I think he wants to play knight g4, threatens mate, hits the queen. Bishop f3 was always a plan to hit the queen. Queen to h3, there's always rook g3, hit the queen. So where's he going to put the queen? Can't go here, here, here. If it goes here, then I have this. Okay, he is able to play queen h3. I think that's one of his only move. I'm thinking about trapping that queen, guys. I'm not gonna lie. He pull it back to h6, but it's on the same line as my bishop. So what if I hit him with f5? Wait, what if I hit him with e5 first? Force him to move the knight. Once he moves the... No, wait. Maybe he puts the knight here, though. So hit him with f5. The only square for the queen is h3. And since I want to play bishop g4, I hit him with e5. And then once he moves that knight, we hit him with bishop g4, and that queen will be trapped. So let's go. This is called a discovered attack. By the way, guys, notice what I did. I moved the pawn out the way, so that way it revealed the bishop is now attacking the queen. And the only square for the queen is now h3. So he did play queen h3, and the plan was to play e5 to attack the knight. And e5 is a removing the guard tactic, by the way. Like, I'm trying to trap his queen, but the knight covers the g4 square. So my plan is to play bishop g4, the knight guards g4. Once the knight moves out the way, then we hit him with bishop g4. Knight moves, and we... Oh, no, no. Yo, this is crazy. Look at this. I thought I was going to trap his queen with bishop g4. And I genuinely did not see that queen h4 because now the bishop covers the h4 square. But this is how chess players think. Because now I actually have a nice move to help with this. Because, okay, the rook being on the same line as the king will help. But now I'm able to play f6. Oh no! Yeah, f6 first. I was about to say f6 doesn't work because the queen escapes. But if the queen moves, we take the bishop, and if the bishop moves, then the queen is really trapped. So I didn't see the whole idea of the bishop covering the square, but f6 is now just a very nice move. So the bishop moves out the way, and where will that queen go after we play bishop to g4? Very nice tactic that we set up. Can't go here, can't take, can't go here, can't go here. I mean, he could sacrifice the knight though, because if he sack the knight and I take with the rook, then the queen gets access to the h4 square. So that wouldn't be too bad. But I'll still be ahead by a knight. So that was just a nice little tactic. Or he could do that move that I didn't see either, because he takes it the queen. If I take, he's gonna take my queen. And then after check, he takes even my bishop. But let's just take back. Like now his queen escapes, but again, we're ahead by a piece from here. If he takes, he hits the knight. So once I take his knight, he's gonna take my knight. So I'm thinking about some ways to save my knight. For example, pulling the bishop back to e2, but then at that point he's gonna check. So instead of doing that, let's go knight d6, hit the rook, which means the rook is now under attack and the knight is under attack. Oh, that was a possibility. Look at that. I made a drawback mistake. My knight was guarding e5. It's no longer guarding e5. The guy just grabbed the free pawn and he's protecting his knight. So where do we go from here? Aha! Because my rook is x-raying g7, okay, I'm running out of time. I'm going to take on h5, and then once the rook takes, we take on g7, and I'm going to say check. If the king goes to h8, that's mate. If the king goes to f8, we take with check. If the king goes back to h8, the queen swoops over with check, and I'm going to be either winning his queen, winning the rook, or he's going to be getting checkmated. With all of that being said, it's a mistake to take my bishop. Ah, he saw all of that. He saw all of that. And he played g6. All right, my time is running out though, so let's just pull the bishop back. I'm ahead by 3 points. I have 40 seconds on the clock. I need to finish my development. Bishop to f4 is going to hit the rook. You know, maybe he's going to play bishop takes pawn here. Once my rooks are connected, I'm going to be very safe. All right, he hits the knight. Let's quickly develop, hit the rook. He could take the knight and then I take the rook, then he take the bishop, and he could say he gets 2 pieces for the rook. But because I'm already ahead in material, this is just good for me anyways. I'm also hitting the bishop, so the bishop has to move. He guarded it with the rook. Okay, I'm going to try to trick him now. Queen to g3. All right, how do we do this? Okay, let's just attack his queen. We have 27 seconds on the clock. If he moves the bishop, then his rook is going to be getting checkmated, but kind of want to force his queen away first. All right, the queen moves. Let's grab this free pawn. Have to play fast. Queen g3 is now the plan. Okay, that's not going to work. Let's go queen g2 because the queen and the rook is now on the same line. If he takes with the rook, he loses the bishop. Ooh. Okay, let's hit the rook. If he takes with the rook, he loses the bishop. Okay, let's hit the queen. I have 13 seconds. All right, let's go back. Queen d5 is coming next. And then his f7 pawn is going to be hanging. Good. He has to protect this, otherwise he's going to be getting checkmated. If he moves the rook, it left the bishop unprotected. So maybe he needs to guard it with the queen, which is what he did. Now I'm going to try to double up on the e file. Oh, he's losing on time. The guy has no time on his clock. Look at that. We won the game. With that being said, we're going to be playing more King's Indian Attack against 1300 level players. Stick around. Opponent is now 1300. Let's play some more King's Indian Attack. Ooh, he plays c6. Looks like this is like a Huracan player, and he plays c6 against anything you play. But once it's not e5 trying to go to e4, we're still just gonna get working out the center of the board. That's step 1 out of the way. And now we're going for step 2, which is to play pawn d3, knight e2. And after we do this, the plan is to simply play e4. So he puts his bishop on d6, but now we're able to play e4. That's a tempo on his bishop, forcing the bishop to move. Okay, the bishop moves out the way. And does that mean he's going to be giving up the bishop for a knight? Let's see. Let's go h3. Hit the bishop. He did not give up the bishop for a knight. Okay, now I want to open the position. Like, his king is in the center. My king is out the center. Let's go d4 and open the center. There's so many pawn tension in the center. If he takes on e4, we take it the bishop. If he takes on d4, I'm not able to take due to the pin. but I'm going to hit him with g4 first, then take the pawn. Queen f6, interesting. He's applying pressure here. He's applying pressure here. But let's just play g4, chase away the bishop. Maybe he's trying to castle the king on the queen side. Who knows? What if I take knight takes, bishop takes? The whole idea would be to play f4 in a position like that. I mean, it's definitely beneficial for us to just open the center as best as we can because his king is still in the center. So let's just try to trade as many pawns as possible. And taking with the bishop first, I really wasn't expecting. Usually they take with the knight, but the guy's just giving me bishop here. Now, rook e1 is definitely a move. Pinning the bishop first, but it's already guarded. Like if I takes knight, yeah, that's what I want to do. I want to take on e5, and then if knight takes e5, his pawn on d5 is going to be hanging. Okay, not even a pawn. Can't guys, there's a way for me to win a piece here. Try to see if you're able to find it. Like taking on d5 is fine and all, but what if I hit him with f4, hit the knight? If you don't move the knight, we take the knight, and if he moves the knight, f5 traps the bishop. Very, very nice tactic. I'm also exposing this diagonal pointing towards my king, but anytime he checks, my king is able to go to h2 or h1, and I'm fine, which means we are winning a piece here. Knight goes back. Let's trap that bishop. Okay, now he's just developing. Bishop is trapped. We're not necessarily in a rush to take that. Well, I don't want him to get too many pawns. So let's... Bro, why is this guy pre-moving? Look at this. Taking was a discovered attack on his queen. That's just a queen, bro. 1300s. He resigns. More King's Indian attack against 1400 players. Stick around. Our opponent is now 1400. Let's play some more King's Indian attack. The plan is simple. Get the king out the center of the board as quickly as possible. So that is out the way. Step 2 is to get the knight to the d2 square so that we were able to play e4. So bishop to e7 is coming next. Let's just go e4 here. We have enough pieces on the e4 square. And if he takes, we're just going to take back. He puts his bishop on b7, which means he has enough attackers on my pawn. And now I'm going to play rook e1 just to ensure that I have enough defenders. Knight to d7. He wants to play c5. That's a weird move though, because now I'm able to play e5 and attack that knight. And now I'm going to try the whole King's Indian attack idea, where we go h4, knight f1, knight h2, knight g4, put the bishop on f4. So he pulls the knight back to e8. That was the only square for the knight. And now I'm going to start with knight to f1. I'm not sure if you guys know who Bobby Fischer is or seen any of his King's Indian attack games, but this is how he basically plays it. The whole idea is to push the h pawn as far as possible. Whenever they play h6, we put the bishop on d2. Well, we put the bishop on f4, the queen on d2, the knight on g4, and then we sacrifice on h6. So c5. And now I'm going to play h4, and then I'm going to develop the bishop because I don't want to develop the bishop and then he gets the chance to play g5. d4 was played, that's not a bad move because it opens this diagonal for his bishop. Now we play h5. I'm just trying to do a pawn storm here. And if I manage to play h6, it weakens his king. So he plays h6, but now I have plans of sacrificing. So let's put the bishop on f4, the queen on d2, maneuver the knight to g4. Oh, knight c7 is very strong. All right, let's go queen d2. Planning on sacrificing. Knight d5, if I takes. Oh, he wants to pull his bishop to f8. It gives me time to play g4 though. Because now if he plays knight d5, I could pull my bishop back. But I could also play knight g3. So knight d5, takes, queen takes. There's always bishop f8, so the sacrifice is not going to work. So let's just park the bishop on the g3 square for now. And I'm going to try to chase away his knight by getting a pawn on the c4 square. All right, bishop g5 is also interesting because if I takes, queen takes, he's trying to trade so many pieces off the board. But we are going to take. And then after queen takes, I just need to not trade the queens if I want to continue with the attack. Pawn f4 won't work because my pawn on g4 is hanging. So first I need to play queen to e2 to guard that pawn. And then I'm going to play f4 on the next move to attack his queen. Now his bishop on b7 is unprotected. So if he wants to put his knight on f4, he needs to guard his bishop. So playing a move like rook to b8 now would be a nice move. Yup, He found rook to b8. Guy's playing some chess. Now he wants to put his knight on the f4 square. All right, let's start with bishop to e5. So that way, if knight f4, I'm able to play queen f3. And then if he trade, I play rook takes, and then his knight is going to be under attack. There's some knight to h3 checks, but that doesn't do anything. I'm just going to move my king. This was a nice move to find, by the way. I think I had to find this move. So now my queen gets the chance to get access to f4, apply. Oh no, no. I was about to say I should have traded first, but that doesn't make any sense. Now I take. His knight is under so much pressure. I mean, he just needs to pull it back to the d5 square though. And then my plan is to play f4 to attack his queen. So after he moves his knight, I'm planning on pulling my queen back to e2 so that way I'm able to play f4. And then once I play f4, we finally get rid of his queen. And then we continue with the attack. Okay, so queen back to e2, f4 incoming. So he voluntarily decided to pull the queen back, but I'm still going to play f4 because I'm trying to get some space on the king side. I'm also thinking of queen f2, bishop h4 to further attack the queen, but I'm thinking of putting my rook on e1 first just to ensure that all my pieces are as active as possible. f6, interesting. What I'm going to do once he plays f6 is to play f5. I'm trying to ensure that my bishop on the same diagonal as his rook is open, which means if he decides to take on f5, then I take on f6, and my bishop attacks his queen, and everything is going to be under attack. If he takes on e5 though, which is what he found, okay, if I take, there's queen takes, so now we just have to take back on e5. His rook is under attack, and now we take, and his pawn on e6 is pinned. So I have 1, 2, 3 attackers. He has 1, 2 defenders. So we could be winning a pawn here. Who knows? I still need to get my rook in the game, though. Need to get this rook over in the game. So he moves his queen out the way. I mean, we could take the pawn, but why not apply even more pressure? He still only has 2 defenders. Once we go rook e1, now he has 3 attackers. 1, 2, 3, 4 attackers versus 2 defenders. Remember, the threat is better than the execution, so I think we're still going to be winning the pawn. All right, so he plays knight to f4, hits the queen. Now we need to find somewhere for the queen, not f2. We have to be on the lookout for this move, knight h3. So there is queen e4. He could check and pull his knight back, but that shouldn't be too strong. And queen e4 also centralized the knight. And if he checks and pull the knight back, at that point my king is going to be on. Okay, maybe I should just put the queen on h2. But I want to ensure that I keep as much pieces attacking e6. You know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to put the queen on f3. Just to ensure that he has no checks on my king, and to ensure that his knight is still going to be under attack. We still have what? 1, 2, 3 attackers versus 2 defenders. So still should be winning a pawn here. Queen to g5 guards the knight, but that's 1 less defender on his pawn. All right, so queen to g5 was played. And I think that was a mistake because he's putting his queen on the same line as my rook. What happens if I just take the pawn now? His queen is going to be under attack. And the check that he has with the knight will not work. So he has to move the queen. So maybe he has. Wait, where is he going to even put the queen? Yo, the guy blundered his queen. That's crazy, bro. He missed a simple discovered attack. He played rook e7 instead. And from here, it's just GG's. Okay, he took, not resigning. All right, how do we do this? There's a lot of attack on my pawn here. I don't think I'm interested in protecting that pawn anymore, especially since I'm ahead in material. I'm trying to trade. So knight is going to f5 next. And if he takes, I'm just going to accept any trades that he do. Okay, rook went over. Okay, knight up takes, I takes, rook takes. Yeah, let's do that. So knight up hits the rook. And then once he takes, again, we're just going to trade. And then once the rook takes, I play this very nice move, queen b7. I'm attacking the pawn. I'm threatening mate. He has a few checks on my king, but his rook and his knight coordinating together will not be enough to checkmate my king or force a draw. So this should just be GG's. All right, he's trying to run with the king. Let's grab the pawn with check, forcing the king to move. Let's grab. Oh my god, I almost blundered my queen. Whoa. Okay, let's just grab another pawn because now I'm threatening to fork his king and his rook. We also have a pass pawn on the h file, so just rolling this pawn up the board should be enough to win the game. Okay, he moves the knight, but now this is just a fork. Yeah, it's just game over from here. Once he moves the king, we grab the rook, we queen the pawn, we win the game. King moves out the way. Let's grab the rook. No, we just need to. The opponent resigns. More kings Indian attack against 1,500 players. Stick around. Opponent is now 1,500. Let's play some more kings Indian attack. E5. We're just gonna get the king out the center of the board. Step 1 is out the way. Now step 2, play d3, get the knight to d2, and then play e4. The thing is though, he has a lot of pieces covering e4, but I could still play e4. This is a very cool idea that I want to teach you guys. If he thinks he's able to take, thinking, oh wait, aren't I just winning a pawn? Nah, now we play knight g5. Now we add 2 more attackers to the pawn, and because his bishop is unprotected, he's not able to take. So he guarded the bishop. Now we take on e4, and this is just a fine position for white. Right, so he develops his bishop, trying to get the bishop as active as possible. Now I'm going to fianchetto my dark squared bishop. So this is going to be a double fianchetto game. It's going to be very easy for me to have all my pieces active. Knight d5 is not bad. Guess he just doesn't want to trade knights here, but not really seeing where that knight is going. So let's just whoa, connect the rook, pawn f5, there's knight c3. All right, this is kind of weird. Pawn f5 is a threat. Knight c3, there's bishop f6. I'm fine. Let's just go queen e2. Because after bishop f6, there's knight e4 hits the bishop. Okay, pawn c5, not bad. We need to finish improving our position here. Let's go rook to e1, put the rook on the file. Rooks needs files. a3 is an idea because eventually I want to go c4 and chase away this knight. No, he plays. Oh, you know what the funny thing is? All this time, I thought after I play knight to c3, bishop f6, I'm able to play knight e4. But playing f5, my fellow viewers, was a drawback mistake. I just want you guys to see how often this happens and how it happens at the high level. Before I take the knight, we play an in-between move. Take on e6, check. His bishop is also under attack, by the way. So maybe I could, if he doesn't block with the rook, okay, he did block with the rook. So let's take back the knight, and just like that, we're ahead by a pawn. He's trading bishops. That's fine. We're ahead in material. Let's just trade. And he's still trying to trade more pieces off the board. I have zero issues with that. We're ahead in material. Rook takes is not possible. If knight takes, how is this not a pawn? I mean, it's very risky, but I'm putting my queen on the same line as the rook. There's no forward knight moves. There's knight d5. If knight d5, I go back to e6. Check doesn't work. Yeah, that's a pawn, bro. Taking that pawn. I want you guys to notice how, because I'm consciously putting my queen on the same line as his rook, I have to be a bit more careful about it. So knight d5, knew he would hit the queen, but the plan was just to go back to e6 and pin that rook. Now we're ahead by 2 clean pawns. Ooh, that's a nice move. He wants to put his rook here. Oh, but the rook no longer guards the back rank. Draw back. Now I'm able to trade the queens off the board. And because I'm ahead by 2 pawns, every trade that I make is going to be perfect for me. Let's take. Now the rook has to block. Then we take. And this is just a completely winning endgame. So let's... rook e1, there's knight b4. So let's play a3. It's very important that we're aware of all the moves that the opponent could move their pieces forward. Rook e7 I'm not afraid of because knight e4 and his rook has no entry in my position. Okay, just a regular move. I'm thinking b4 here, but that's rushing it. b4 is rushing it. King activity is crucial in the endgame. I want to go f4 first. Let's just get this rook in the game. Can't be a bad move. Can't be a bad decision if you want to play chess with all your pieces. And then from here, the plan is to play f4, king to f3. Okay, now I'm thinking of some possible trades, but let's go f4 first. I can't move the knight just yet because my rook is unprotected. Okay, he moves his knight out the way. He's trying to take advantage of the pin. But let's just play king to f3. Like, if he takes, it's just over. Like, the moment he takes the knight, he has to resign. So he's not going to take. My plan is just to move my rook to e2 or e3. And then once everything... Okay, now he has to resign. Guys, if you're down in material, please stop trading the pieces off the board. How are you going to win if you're mathematically down 2 pawns in the endgame. Now all I need to do, the winning side doesn't really want to trade pawns, but now my king is really active. I have 2 pawn majority on 2 sides of the board, which means I'm going to have a C pass pawn and a F pass pawn. Let's just create the C pass pawn. Okay, he's moving the king, B4 followed by C5. That's why he pulls the king back, but now it's just late. In fact, let's take with the king. We still have a pawn majority, and we're still going to create more pass pawn. Very, very simple conversion here. Okay, once he pushed, let's just push, and then we're going to get in with the king. Okay, now we're trying to freeze his pawns from moving. Once the pawns are not able to move, he has to move the king. And then our king, okay, that's just up. Okay, and he resigns. More King's Indian attack against 1600 players. Stick around. Opponent is now 1600. We're playing some more King's Indian attack. Okay, he develops the knight. Let's just get our king out the center of the board. E5 means he wants to play E4. So let's play D3, preventing E4, and then just get our king out the center of the board. Okay, let's just go bishop G2. E4, I'm not afraid of. Interesting. Now we castle. And then the next idea is to go knight D2 and E4. Like, I also like the idea of playing H3 as early as possible because they like to go queen D7. And then once the queen is on D7, we're not going to be able to play H3. Like, I think queen D7, queenside castling H5, H4, that's a very aggressive way to counter the King's Indian attack. Now he plays E4. Because if I takes, take rook takes, and my knight is not able to move to the center. And if I play knight G5, there's knight D4, so I have to be careful here. I don't think I'm going to take that pawn. I'm just going to pull the knight back to D2. If he takes, I take with the pawn, and I'm going to try to play some C4 ideas and then just try to break down his structure this way. For now, I'm threatening to win a pawn. F5 would not surprise me here. Knight F6 is weird. If I takes, knight takes, after the queens are traded off the board, there's bishop takes E2. But the moment I play rook to E1, my rook is going to be on the same line as his king. So takes, knight takes, queen takes, rook takes, bishop takes, rook E1. And if the bishop moves, my rook is on the same line as his king. So I have 1, 2, 3 attackers. He has 1, 2 defenders. That's a pawn, bro. He took the pawn. Now if I takes, knight D4 is an idea, but I should be able to play knight C3. I could takes, queen takes, then there's no knight D4. That's a pawn, bro. What I like about the King's Indian attack is you don't have to worry about king safety. Your king is gonna be castled quick. So bishop E7 was played because he knows that eventually my rook is gonna be on the same line as his king. Okay, now what I'm gonna do is I'm going to take on F6, so that way, once the bishop takes, he's still not going to be able to take this pawn. Now I'm going to play the move pawn to C3. Remember we spoke about how important this move is. No knight is able to come to D4 or B4. Now that he castled the king, we have to worry about our pawn on E2. So how are we going to not lose this pawn? I could trade the queens, but that is just going to give him the activity. I could go knight D2. I could go F3 to hit the bishop. I'm thinking of just playing bishop to F3 here. Yeah, let's try bishop to F3. Bishop to H3. Very strong move because it gains a tempo on my bishop. I'm just trying not to lose my pawn. I'm definitely behind in development here, though, guys. Like, the guy's king is castled. All his minor pieces are out, and I have 2 minor pieces sitting on the back rank. But I am ahead by a pawn, which means if I'm able to just safely get my minor pieces out, then I should have a winning position or better position. I'm not going to say winning. Okay, so he did play bishop H3. Did I make the right decision? Just move the rook out the way. Now if he takes, I takes, he's able to play rook to D8. Like, this guy's gonna have so much activity. Like, so much activity. Okay, rook to B8 is kind of weird, bro. You don't want to play moves like rook to B8. Now it's giving me time to finish my development. I guess he wanted to play knight E5, and he doesn't want to lose this pawn. But now if he plays knight E5, I'll just take because I'm ahead in material. I'm trying to trade, plus I'm behind in material, so I'm trying to simplify the position as best as I can. Knight E5 was played. You could take the bishop here, bro. I just want my development. Okay, how do we finish development here? Thinking knight A3. Remember not to put your knights on the edge of the board, guys. If you're going to put the knights on the edge of the board, you need to take it off the edge of the board as quickly as you possibly can. On c6, he don't want me to play this move, but I'm able to play this move and attack the bishop. I'm assuming the bishop is just going to go back, but now my plan is just to win a very simple endgame. Okay, he pulls the bishop back. No, only now, we trade the queens. Because once the rook takes, it gives us time to swing the other rook over in the game. And we're just going to be trading everything. Everything is going to be traded off the board. All we want to win is one extra pawn. He pulls the bishop back to f5, and okay, I think he wants to play bishop c2. I'm thinking e4. Just hit the bishop. Yeah, let's just attack that bishop. I could also play e5 in the future as well, and I have a plan to just take the rook, swing the other rook in the game, and just win a very nice endgame. So the bishop goes back to h3. I mean, wasting time, bro. Now, in the endgame, it's important that we attack pawns. What is wrong with knight a5? Hit the weak pawn. If knight a5, if c6 I take, rook over is ugly. I think he has to pull the bishop all the way back to c8, which is not really bad for him, to be honest. It's kind of where he wants the bishop right now, because the bishop isn't doing anything on h3. Maybe I should play e5, hit the bishop, and then knight d6. Okay, let's not complicate the game. Let's just trade the pieces off the board. We're ahead by a pawn. An extra pawn is all we need. Okay, now we take, and he should have played bishop e6 to hit the knight and the pawn. That would have been a very good move. Pawn to b5 was not it, bro. Knight a5 is attacking weak pawns. There's bishop d7, knight e3. Let's just play knight e3, trying to stay as flexible as I possibly can. And my opponent's main plan in this position is to trade his dark squared bishop for my is to trade his light squared bishop for my knight, because the opposite colored bishop endgame scenario will be ending in a draw, which is why I'm going to hit him with bishop g4. Trade. Now there's no possibility of opposite colored bishops. If he take, I take, hit the bishop, but it's very important that I get my king in the game. I want you guys to notice all I did in this game. I got one extra pawn. I took that extra pawn. I trade all my pieces off the board, and then we go to the end game. From here, it's all about king activity. Let's start getting the king in the game. One thing to keep in mind is we're playing against a dark squared bishop. We want our pawns on light squares. So that's definitely a plan that I'm going to put in place. Okay, f6 was to ensure that my knight has no forward moves. He's also trying to get his king as active as possible. So let's continue to improve our king. He's improving his king. We're improving our king. I want you guys to notice how I'm avoiding the dark squares. Okay, now king e6, I'm thinking f4. Yeah, let's just go f4 here. And eventually I want my knight to be centralized. It's very important that we centralize the knight. Okay, so the bishop goes here. Maybe he wants to put the bishop there. Knight e3 should be perfectly fine, because if he trades the bishop, it's just mathematically losing for black. Ooh, that was bad, bro. That was bad. That was bad. Okay, maybe he wants to play c4. So I'm going to play c4 first, which is putting my pieces on light squares, but my knight is going to be permanently placed on the d5 square. So my knight is going to be better than his bishop, and I'm ahead by a pawn. Like, these are the little things that we need to add up. Maybe I could play knight f5 to provoke a weakness, but I don't think that is needed right now. I don't even think it's needed to go knight to d5 immediately. So let's continue to slowly make some progress. So bishop goes back, hitting the pawn. Now we hit the bishop, guard the pawn. Okay, so bishop d6. Now it's very important that we find a way to get some entry in its position. And if I ever push this, his king is going to be too active. Okay, now let's go h3, putting our pawns on light squares. My time is also ticking, so I have to play a bit faster now. There's a plan to run my king around this way, but I don't want to leave the center too exposed. Okay, that's such a nice move, because now his king is going to get entry. If I check, there's king up. Wait, check, king up, then put my king on e3. Okay, maybe I should just take, then put my king on e3. Like, what's the the difference is I have a pass pawn. That's the difference. So now my pawn is passed. He took, his king is definitely getting some entry though. So we have to be careful here. Okay, let's go here. We have to play fast now. Can't believe I have less than a minute on the clock. Keep the pieces on light squares. King back. Maybe king here. King up is going to be very strong. Oh my lord, how do I win this? Maybe knight back? If king up, I check. Okay, the knight on f5 is going to be doing a nice roll, preventing the king from going here. I have to play so fast now. Okay, I'm going to just put the king here to prevent his king from coming in, and then just try to terrorize him with my knight. The good thing is, he's now thinking, so that's nice. Okay, a5, let's go here. Now I'm just going to play some knight moves. Yep, plan is to fork. Bishop moves, we got him. Check the king, hit the pawn. Very nice. And then once the king move, should be winning with this extra pawn. Okay, let's go back. Packing weak pawns in the end game, very important. There's no way for him to defend this pawn, by the way, guys. It's losing now, and trading the bishops takes. I think trading the bishop has to be bad for him. Okay, how do I win though? Yeah, I have a plan. I have 3 versus 2. I'm going to create a pass pawn here. That's the plan. Very nice. Okay, let's roll the pass pawn. If he takes, I take. Very nice. I mean, I think he has to take, by the way. Yeah, that's bad. Because now my pawn is just protected. So I could use the fox in the chicken coop technique to win. Like, once he tries to run around here, my pawn is just going to become a queen. Okay, let's take the opposition. No need to rush. Get the king active. Now we push the pawn because we want some entry. Then we take the pawn. Very nice. This is fox in the chicken coop technique, guys. Notice how I'm lowering his king away? And if he now that he comes to this side, then we push the pawn. He's no longer in the square, and there's nothing he could do to prevent me from winning this game. Now we check, grab the pawns, win the game. Okay, let's just ensure that we finish this off. He only has 3 seconds on the clock, so yeah, let's just finish him off. It's not stalemate the game. And he lost. More Kings Indian attack against 1,700 players. Stick around. Opponent is now 1,700. Let's play some more Kings Indian attack. So pawn d5, let's just do the regular stuff first. Let's just get the king to safety. That's first and foremost. We're going to have a very safe king, and then we're going to start the attack. Knight c6, bishop g2. Now, knight c6 is preparing e5, and e5 means he wants to chase away our knight. So once e5 happens, we play d3. We don't want him to play e4, and then we're going to get the king out the center of the board. And if you play the Pyrrhic defense, it's basically a strong version of the Pyrrhic, and you're playing ahead by a tempo. So he's developing normally. Let's get the king out the center of the board. Jump to d6. And how I like to start is, again, we have to be very patient. We're not going to try to win the game on move 5. So let's focus on getting as many pieces active as possible. I'm going to play the move knight to d2, bishop to g5, trying to get rid of the dark squared bishop isn't really important. The dark squared bishop you're not really going to be using right now. But eventually, it's going to be very active in the game. For example, if his king castled, eventually we could even sacrifice on h6. So he castled the king. Now we play e4. This is the whole setup. It's the whole idea. And then they play pawn to d4. Now, once you get a structure like this, then eventually the plan becomes to play f4. And once we play f4, that's how we want to start the attack on their king. But this knight on d2, eventually it's able to go to c4, hit the bishop, and I'm not necessarily going to take the bishop unless he forces me to take the bishop, which is why you're going to see a lot of times I play a4, so that way they don't play b5. So if he plays b5 now, okay, he's forcing me to take the bishop, and at least I could say, okay, at least I have your bishop here. But this is a bad bishop. Like, if you look on the bishop, it's been blocked in by its own pawns. Now, I would be happy if he gives me this bishop. So bishop to e6 was played. And how do we continue? Because he's threatening to take, and if I take back, he wins this pawn. So let's just play pawn to b3, so that way if he takes, we take with the b pawn, and we're not going to be losing our e pawn. Pawn h6. Now we play a4, so that way it's a bit harder for him to play b5 and attack our knight. And I'm going to start developing a very slow attack with f4. So there's 2 ways to do this. There's knight h4 and there's knight e1. Knight h4, he could also just play knight e7. It's going to be hard for me to get my knight on the f5 square. So actually, let's be principled first. Let's go bishop d2 first. So I could say I've completed my development. And then queen d7, now we go knight e1. Now, it looks as if he's trying to play bishop h3, but okay, Is my light squared bishop that strong? Like it's pointing towards my pawn on e4. His light squared bishop is strong. His dark squared bishop is bad. So if he wants to play bishop h3, that's up to him. My plan from here is to play f4. And after takes, I have a very nice structure. So he did play bishop h3. And now we continue with the plan of playing f4. If he takes, the question is, do we take with the knight or the king? I'm going to choose to take with the king so that way his queen doesn't get access to the h3 square. Now I'm trying to get my knight back in the game, and the King's Indian attack is one of those attacks where you break one of the principles, which is do not push pawns on the side that your king is on, because we are going to be pushing pawns on the side that our king is on. But whenever they take on f4, I like to take back with the pawn. Now, there is queen g4, which trades the queens off the board, but that really is not going to affect me. So let's just take with the pawn. Already I'm threatening a fork, so he has to be careful. If queen g4, I'm just going to take, hit the knight, and maybe he has to even sacrifice a pawn in that scenario. So I really like my position. However, if I had the chance to go king h1 and rook g1, that would be even better. So he went for the whole idea of trading the queens. I guess he saw that the attack was coming and he trades the queen off the board. But here's the issue. He's attacking my e3 square only once if the knight gets to e3. And if I play h3, he's not able to go back to f6 due to the fork. So once I play h3, he has to play knight e3, and I'm just going to take. And that's just going to be a free pawn. So just by following the King's Indian attack plan, we got a free pawn coming out of the opening. Now we're just trying to convert this into a win. Okay, let's grab the pawn. If there's no bishop takes, the rook is always guarding it. Now we're ahead by a pawn. Let's get our knight on e1 back in the game and maybe swing the rooks over in the game, and now we're going to win a very nice endgame. He's getting his rook in the game. Maybe he wants to go f5, and if I take, he wins my bishop. I'm always going to play e4, e5 if he plays f5. My least active piece right now is this knight, so let's just get this knight in the game. Knight f3, there's knight b4. Could be annoying. So maybe I need to play pawn c3 first. Now, there's a principle in chess called the principle of neutralization, which means we don't allow pieces on our half of the board and we chase them out, chase them out. But there's also a principle called, what does Igor Smirnov call it again? The principle of limitation, where you just limit the access that the opponent's pieces has. So if they're on your half of the board, you neutralize it. If it's not on your half of the board, you don't allow it on your half of the board. Knight back to d7. Now, where's the knight headed? Can't go forward here. Knight g6 is a possibility, but f4 is going to be guarded. Where is he going to put the bishop after I play e5? It's a trick. If I play e5, the bishop seems trapped, but knight f5 attacks my bishop. In fact, he is threatening to play knight f5 because if I takes, rook takes. So that's a very resourceful move. We're not going to be trying to rush this endgame, guys. So let's just slowly get every piece in the game. I'm going to play knight c2 just to ensure that my bishop is guarded, which means now that you could see I'm threatening e5. And if he plays knight to f5, I take, and my bishop is going to be fine. Now he plays pawn to c5. And okay, do we bring more pieces in the game? Yeah, let's bring more pieces in the game. Now all our pieces are active, and I have a very nice plan to get this knight even more active. It's either going to be knight a3 to c4 or knight a3 to b5. But remember, guys, we don't rush the end game. Not because I'm ahead in material means, okay, I'm ahead in material, where's my win? I need to win the game right now. Nah, knight c4, I'm going to play maybe pawn d4. I'm going to create a pass pawn, slowly roll my pass pawn up the board, and that's how I'm going to win the game. Okay, so knight back to c8 was played. I like to see people pulling their pieces back, That's a good sign for us. Let's continue to improve our position. Hit the bishop, target this weak pawn. And eventually I want to play d4. If I play d4, I lose e4. So I may need to ensure that my e4 pawn is guarded, or maybe I'm just going to push the pawn to e4. So the bishop went back. I mean, king activity is also important. So let's just get the king in the game and guard the pawn. Now it's going to be easier for me to play d4. And he's also trying to trade pieces off the board. Like, if you're winning and someone is offering you a trade, just say thanks, bro. They're making your job easier. And if you're losing, do not trade the pieces off the board. Okay, now we play pawn to d4. If he takes, I may play bishop takes. Because bishop takes keeps this guarded and it attacks his weak pawn. I'm not going to be able to have a pass pawn in that scenario though, but I'm also going to be able to attack this weak pawn. So, and then one more thing I want you guys to keep in mind when it comes to the end game is how to just use each of your pieces like on an individual level. So for example, the bishops. Centralizing the bishop is crucial because you want to ensure that your bishop is able to be active working on both sides. If I play rook to g1 now, he plays pawn g6 and I have nothing. Even if I play f5, he plays pawn g4. But what if I play h4? There's no f6. Does that mean I'm winning a pawn? Let's think about it. Rook g1 attacks weak pawn. If f6 we take, rook g1, if pawn g6, pawn to f5 applies pressure, there is king h7 though. There is king h7. Okay, let's play h4. h4 followed by h5. So that way, if the rook goes to g1, he's not able to play g6. Remember what we said about patient, guys. Now he plays f6, and I could even get my king to the f5 square. But let's play h5 first. My pawn is a bit overexerted, I'm not going to lie, but I'm not seeing how he's going to attack it. Now look on what I'm going to do here. He's trying to double up the rooks. I'm thinking of just getting my king to the f5 square. Yeah, let's do that. King g4. And if he plays rook to e8, we play king f5. This is the most active king. This is why king activity is crucial in the endgame. And now my pawn on h5 is doing a very strong role because there's no g6. And eventually rook to g1 will be threatening bishop takes f6. But I'm trying to now get some access on the d file. Can't move away this rook, by the way. I'd lose the pawn. So maybe I'm going to use this rook or swing the rook to e2, then rook to d1. Whenever you have a winning position, I like to tell people to just enjoy the winning position. Just enjoy. Like, I'm winning. What's the difference if it takes me 40 moves or 10 moves? King f7. Okay, he's getting his king active. Pawn to e5, rolling the pawn up the board. Push takes takes. Maybe rook e6 and he's fine. I have 3 pawns versus 2 pawns over here. So I'm thinking about possibilities of creating a pass pawn over there. I'm going to start with rook to e2 though. It's a very patient move because I want to be able to swing my rook over, and I don't want to swing this rook over because it's going to be a drawback. So rook e2 makes it easier for me to swing this rook over, but I'm probably just going to play b4, and then if I have to swing over the rook, then I'll swing it over. Rook e6, okay. He's also just trying to hold the position. Now b4 takes could allow me to create a pass pawn. B4 takes leaves my bishop unprotected though, so that's something that I need to be aware of. So the question is, when do I play D4 takes? Let's just fully prepare the idea. Rook to B1. Pawn B4 is what I'm trying to play. Okay, there's also one more idea that I could try, maybe attacking his pawn on G7 twice, but I can't really leave my E4 pawn unprotected. Bishop went back. Let's think about it. What if I play, maybe, let's try this first. What if I play rook G1, then rook here? If he takes, I take. Hmm. Pawn b4 takes. Let's go pawn b4. Good thing is, if he takes, I can now play rook takes. My bishop is still guarded. His pawn is still weak. But I have to think about creating pass pawns in the endgame. Yeah, he's not repeating moves. Bishop d8, bishop back to c7. But what if I take? If I takes, he takes, we get the pass pawn, we get the rook on the 7th rank. That has to be a slight improvement of the position. So let's go with that. We take the pawn. Once he takes, rook's on the 7th is in heaven. I'm also pinning the bishop. I'm assuming he's going to play rook to e7 to... Okay, he uses this rook. Wasn't expecting him to use that rook. Because now the rook no longer guards b6. And I'm thinking of just playing bishop b6 here. And then trade the bishops off the board. Trading the bishops off the board should make the game a bit easier for me. It should also make his a pawn a bit weaker. Maybe it's time to push the e pawn. Who knows? Let's say I push, he takes, bishop takes. If he takes, I check first. Then rook takes, hit the rook, hit this pawn. Maybe at that point he plays rook to c7 though. Which means if my pawn was on c4, pawn c5 would be a nice move. Alright, let's just go with the simpler way. I'm not trying to complicate the game too much. Bishop b6 and then just trade. Bishop takes, I play rook takes. It's going to be easier for me to attack this pawn. My c pawn is now weak because my bishop is no longer on d4. And I'm assuming he's just going to start. Okay, that's so passive though. You never want to be playing passive moves like that. Now I'm thinking of just rolling my pawn up the board actually. Push maybe rook over, get my rook behind the pawn, and white is now chilling. Because he needed to keep as much. Look at this. He puts the rook there. Pass pawns must be pushed, bro. And once he tries to attack the pawn, get the rook behind the pass pawn, and I'm also going to be able to create another pass pawn here. Okay, there's also rook to b5, which protects my pawn and attack his pawn. So he had to go over to defend the pawn. Okay, do we push? No, let's not rush. Let's play e5. Now we finally create the other pass pawn. If he takes, there is rook takes, but I like the idea of pawn takes. Now we have two pass pawns marching up the board. This is endgame technique 101, guys. If I'm able to play e6 with check, that would also be a nice move, because then my king is going to be able to walk over to this side. All right, so he moves the king, the rook. Check, there's king over. So let's not rush that. Let's go rook d2, put the rook on the file. I want to go rook here, so that way it's easier for me to roll my pawns up the board. I also want it to be easier for me to get my king over in the game. The time is now ticking, by the way, so we have to be careful. But I think it's going to be, this is a way easier position for me to play. He moves his king. We activate one of the rooks. Maybe I could even just get the king over. Pass pawns must be pushed, but I'm trying to be as patient as possible about it. King here, maybe even rook here, and it's going to be easier for me to win. Okay, trading should just not be good, because now I'm able to take. If rook takes, we win this pawn. King takes, check, there's king up. I could play king here, but there's king up. So let's play rook to b6 to prevent the king from ever coming up. Okay, there is rook c7. Rook c7, I'm wondering if I could check. Rook takes, king takes, king up. King up, I takes, king takes, I takes, king here is drawn. Or check, rook takes, check, king move takes, check, rook takes, check, block takes, king up. And then once the king move, king f7, and there's no way for him to prevent the queen. That's what we're going to play. So if he takes, we check. If he blocks with the rook, we win. And if he moves the king, we take this pawn. And then this pawn is going to fall. He didn't even take it, which means now my king is super active. King up. That's now the threat. So he checks, king d6. This is endgame technique, guys. We were patient. We didn't try to rush. We also used the time wisely, because 20 seconds now is more than enough time to win. I'm also threatening mate. If he moves the king, he loses the rook. So he moves the king out the way. But now we just roll the pass pawn. The king is not able to protect the pawn. I think he has to sack his rook. I mean, that was just a check. Let's just move. And we're just going to queen on the next move. See, he just gave us the rook. He didn't even sack it. Now I'm going to queen, and this is going to lead to a checkmate. I almost stalemated the game. Let's go here, force him to push the pawn, and then it's going to be checkmate in two moves. He moves the pawn, we check, king has to move, and that's just a checkmate. More kings in the attack against 1800 level players. Stick around. Opponent is now 1800. Let's play some more kings in the attack. We're seeing c5. We're going to do the regular stuff, just getting the king up the center of the board. And whenever you see e5, they're trying to play e4. So let's just play d3 first. Knight e7. Let's get the king out the center of the board. g6. Okay. Okay. All right, let's just continue with the plan. Knight goes to d2, pawn goes to e4. Develops the bishop. Now we play e4. I think he wants to play f5 eventually. It's funny how I want to play f4, he wants to play f5. I think it's going to be a bit quicker for him to play f5, so maybe I need to focus my attack in the center of the board here. So maybe I need to play d4. The thing is, the guy has 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces covering the d4 square, and I only have 1, 2, 3 pieces. So how is it going to be possible for us to play d4 here? Okay, first let's just get this rook over in the game. I don't think I'm going to be ever playing f4. He plays h6, so that way I'm not able to play any little knight g5 ideas. Now f5 is definitely coming next. Can I play d4 now? Yeah, I'm sure I'm not able to play d4 now. I just need to prepare. Let's go knight to f1, and I need to be prepared to play d4. He moves the king to h7. f5 is coming. Like, whenever he plays f5, I may just take. Yeah, I'm just going to focus on my development. I'm just going to focus on my development. Like f5, I don't want him to play f4, so let's just take. The thing is though, well, I was just about to say he's able to take with the pawn, but he didn't. Now I'm thinking about playing d4. If d4, there's e5, hit the knight. I'm thinking about knight h4 at that point, hit the bishop. Now I have 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces on d4. He has 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces on d4, which means it is safe to play d4. Ensure that you guys know how to count. He took, I take. And if he takes, I take. And then if the knight takes, the bishop takes. The thing is, though, his pawn on d6 is now just very weak. I don't think he should have gone into this variation because now we definitely have a target to attack. I'm not seeing what his target is. Okay, he pulls the bishop back because clearly I was about to get the bishop here. Let's just bring more pieces in the game though. Rooks needs files. I want to ensure that all my pieces are active. And if you look on my position, I don't really have any bad pieces. Only my knight on f1 needs to be improved a bit more. Now I'm thinking of playing knight to b5, trying to grab this pawn. Knight b5 is able to take here though. So let's just start by playing queen to d2, connecting the rooks, protecting this pawn. Now I'd like to play knight b5 and attack his weak backward pawn. Well, it's not really backward, it's just isolated because there's no pawns beside it. Knight f5, okay. He's hitting my knight, also my bishop. Now if I takes, there's bishop takes, and his pawn is safe. So thinking of just going knight b5. If he takes, I take, and I'm not seeing how he's going to be able to defend his d pawn. So let's go for that line. He could say he's getting the bishop here though, but a pawn is a pawn at the end of the day. But with an open position like this, having the bishop here is very important. Okay, rook f6 guards the pawn. Isn't this a pawn though? Like, what if I take, knight takes, and then I take? Maybe he wants to play b6 and trap my bishop, so that could be a bit risky. The thing is, now he's allowing me to save my bishop and apply more pressure to the pawn. So now I could say I have one, two, three pieces attacking d6, and he only have two pieces guarding d6. So he decides to pull back the bishop. That's what I like to see. Very passive play. One, two, three defenders, one, two, three attackers. Pawn g4. That's an attempt to remove the defender. But another very nice attempt to remove the defender is knight e3, especially since my knight is not doing anything on e3. There's also sacrificing the rook. And then if the queen takes, we no, nah, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's just play knight to e3. And if he takes, we just take back. And that's just one less defender on his d6 pawn. So whenever you're trying to attack a target, look for ways to either add attackers or remove defenders. Now he plays a6 to attack my knight, but why move the knight? Let's just take on f5. And we managed to remove one of the defender of the d6 square, which means if he takes on f5, he loses the pawn. And if he chooses to take my knight, I grab the bishop and I'm just going to have a better position with the bishop here. So he grabbed the knight. Let's grab the bishop. We have the bishop here. We're chilling. And I also didn't see that this was such a nice tactic. Like, this is also a removing the guard tactic, guys. Like, I have so many pieces pointing towards h6. So once I take on g7 and the king takes, now we have a very nice battery on h6. Also, his rook and his queen is on the same line. So once we take on h6 with check, he is going to be forced to move his king. And then once he moves the king, we pull the bishop back, pin the rook to the queen, and we could now say it's game over because we are already ahead by a pawn. Okay, so bishop moves, hits the pawn. Whenever you're pinning a rook to a queen or a king, remember, do not take that rook until they try to get out of the pin. So let's just be a bit patient here. Pawn b3, guard the pawn. Eventually, I want to play rook to d1 and even apply some more pressure to d6. Okay, he moves the rook. Maybe he wants to put the rook here to guard d6. Oh, pawn to b3 was actually secretly a very nice move. Maybe I could have played queen c3 though. But here's what I'm going to do. I want to go queen b2 and apply pressure to the rook, but there's knight to e5. So let's first eliminate the knight, and then it doesn't really matter how he takes. He chose to take with the pawn. Now we play queen b2. PP on the PP. You must apply pressure to the opponent's pin pieces. Do not take the piece that is pinned until they really try to get out of the pin. Now that he's pinned two different ways, he's never going to be able to get out of this pin. What am I going to do? Rook to e3. I'm going to apply even more pressure to that rook. Okay, not bad move. bd5, preventing this. Definitely not bad. And he's also planning on doing this. Okay, let's just go rook to e1. Let's just double up on the file. I could try to go rook to e8, hit the queen, remove the defender. Okay, yeah, I'm definitely not going to be able to just win that rook. Rook here won't work. Hit the queen. Queen move. Okay, let's first hit the queen. Hit the queen, and then once the queen moves, oh my god. If he puts the queen on the 7th rank, it's over. Because the moment I take, rook to e7 is going to be a fork. So I think he has to put the queen on the 6th rank. But then I'm going to take, and I'm still going to check him here. The guy's in trouble. Okay, queen b6 was played. That is still not a threat, so now I want to play rook e7. Like, we're just not going to take this rook until he tries to get out of the pin. Queen takes, I'm just going to take. Never mind. If queen takes, the rook is not pinned. Let's just take that rook. Now he plays rook takes. I want to check, but he's definitely going to go bishop block. Or we play rook to e6 now. If bishop takes, we take. The rook is going to be pinned. But then he's able to pull the queen back. We trade everything off the board. I'm not sure. Wait, after we trade everything off the board, pawn a4. Oh, but then the king is able to step in the square. Maybe I could try to prepare that though. Could try to prepare that. Okay, let's start by checking the king. I mean, it forces the bishop to block, so that is good for me anyways. Now I'm going to play rook to e3, which comes with a lot of ideas applying more pressure to this pinned rook. So there's just so many tactics happening in this game. Like, I really hope you guys are able to see how when you pin a piece, you should just apply as much pressure as possible. Queen here doesn't do anything. Now we play rook f3. PP on the PP. What is he going to play? He can't check here. Queen can't go anywhere. Rook to f3 wins the game. PP on the PP. That was the theme of this game. Kind of knew he was going to play this, thinking, okay, the rook no longer guards, but that's a queen, bro. And he resigns. More Kings Indian attack against 1900 players. Stick around. Opponent is now 1900. Let's play some more Kings Indian attack. He responds with immediate knight c6. Let's go g3, bishop g2, castle, regular stuff. Okay, we don't want to allow e4, so let's go d3 to prevent this. And now it's a very simple plan. Like, we know exactly what's happening here. He's just developing his pieces normally. We know that the knight goes to d2, and we know that we're going to play pawn e4. So the first part is out the way. Now we're going to continue with our plan. So the first 7 moves in the King's Indian attack should be no-brainer for you guys. He's pinning my knight to my queen. That's already a sign that I'm going to get the bishop here. And I think he wants to go knight d4 to apply pressure to the pinned knight. Or maybe he wants to go queen d7 to trade. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play h3 first, just to ensure that once the queen goes to d7, I can't play a3 anymore. And now once he takes, okay, how do we take back though? Okay, let's take with the queen. I don't want him to play knight d4, because if he plays knight d4, which is what he did, it looks like I'm wasting time, but he's wasting time, because the whole idea was not to have a piece on f3. And I also wanted to play c3 to attack his knight. So once I play c3, he's going to be forced to move his knight out the way. And okay, maybe I'm not going to play f4 because the bishop is on this diagonal, but we're definitely going to be playing c3. Here he moves the queen, and there's a little trap that I'm trying to set up here with a4. Because the plan is to play c3. We know that we're going to play a4 eventually, but okay, he saw it and play a5. The plan was to play c3, kick the knight, and once the knight moves, we play b4. But he saw it, so let's just continue with c3. And now that we're not able to play f4, I'm going to play d4. Well, not after this. Obviously, the count has to be correct. So he has 3 pieces on the square. I only have 1. How do I do this? There is knight b3, hits the bishop. Once the bishop moves, there's d4. But my pawn on e4 is going to be under attack there. So let's just start with rook to e1 first. Remember, it's very important to be patient, guys. And usually when you're patient and slowly improve your position, if the opponent doesn't know what to do, it could also lead them to be making blunders. So he pulls his knight back. Maybe he wants the knight on e6, but my plan was actually to put my knight on the f5 square. So let's go knight f1. Plan is to go e3 to f5, and if I go to e3 and he takes, he's giving me the bishop here, which would be very nice. And the good thing is, his knight on e6 has no forward move, but my knight on e3 has 2 forward moves. He gave up the bishop for a knight. This is going to be very good for us, guys. We have the bishop here. Once we have the bishop here, what's the plan? To open the position. And how do we open the position? With the use of pawn breaks. And that's why I'm going to play the move f4. Now, d4 was also possible, but f4 also facilitates some plans of a kingside attack. So, for example, I could play f5 with the knight and then start rolling the pawns up the board. And anytime they take this way, we just take back and we have very good control over the center of the board. And what I like to say here is we do not move these pawns forward until it's crucial, until it's vital, until it does something, because it's going to be very uncomfortable for the opponent. And every single move he plays, he has to think about what happens if he moves this pawn? What happens if he moves this pawn? So we're going to use the time to improve our back rank, like maybe move the king out the way, put the rook on the same line as the king, move our queen so that way we connect the rooks. Pawn to g6 though, bro. Already he's pushing pawns on the side that his king is on. The bishop is on the same line as h6. So already I'm thinking about playing f5. f5, there's knight g5 though. h4 hits the knight. Knight h7, and then we take a free pawn. f5, if takes, we're just winning, which means I said not to rush f5, but he's allowing me to get a free pawn very early, and this is why you don't push pawns on the side that your king is on, guys. And I want you guys to notice how I'm winning this game. It's not like I did anything too fancy. It's just okay, I'm maneuvering my pieces, he's creating weaknesses in his position, and then I punish him for it. So the knight moves to c5, not really creating any threat. His pawn on h6 is hanging. Let's just grab the free pawn, hit the rook, and then once the rook move, I'm thinking of playing bishop to g5. It's gonna be such an annoying pin. Right, rook e8 was played. I want to play bishop g5 to pin this knight. If bishop g5 he takes, I take, some trades will happen there. And then maybe he wants to take queen f3. Okay, I'm going to go queen f3. If he takes, I take. There is knight takes, hit the rook. At that point, I'm able to go bishop g5 though. Slightly tricky position, slightly tricky. Let's go with queen to f3. Takes, pawn takes, he's able to give up his queen for both of his rooks. And I think that should still be fine for me, because usually whenever you're going to be giving up your queen for both of the rooks, for one, you have to ensure that your king is safe. If he does it this way, his king is not going to be safe. And two, you have to ensure that your rooks are going to be coordinated. All right, so he moves the queen, but he made another blunder. Look at this, guys. Whenever there's two pieces that is as adjacent to each other, you have to be looking out for forks, bro. Okay, and before I play the move, what I do is I check to see if there's any forward move that he has. He doesn't though, so d4 is just a fork. He has to move the queen, we grab the knight, and now it's just completely winning. Instead, the guy decided to sacrifice his queen, so let's just take the queen. That's kind of weird, bro, for 1900. All right, he took with the knight. Let's just take on f6, trying to expose his king a bit more. Rook to e1 is also coming next, just to apply some pressure to his knight. In fact, maybe I need to just play queen f4. Yeah, let's try queen f4 first, because I'm trying to trade some pieces off the board here. Like once I take, it's gonna be easier for me to win. But rook e1 was still a good move. Maybe I could even play rook f1 to get the rook on the f file. Okay, he hits the queen. Okay, that was interesting. I have two pieces hitting the knight, but can't do anything. I could sack my queen. Yeah, I mean, I think that's one way to win. I think it's just conversion. Okay, what if I play queen g4 though? Hit the pawn and the knight. If king up, I just take. Yeah, let's do this. Which means I have two pieces attacking the knight and I'm threatening g6. It looks like I have some Magnus effect myself, guys, because he just said he's apologizing for playing badly because he's nervous, and it's good to make people nervous when they play against you. But if you want to get this effect, you have to first be strong. So he pulls his knight back. No, nothing is guarding this knight. I mean, he's trying not to get mated, but that's now just a free knight, bro. And now the game is just completely over. Yeah, he resigns. More Kings Indian attack against 2000 level players. Stick around. Our opponent is now 2000. Let's finish off with a banger of a Kings Indian attack. Okay, so d5, we know what to do. Let's just get the king out the center of the board, first and foremost. I really like the Kings Indian attack because you don't know what the opponent is going to play, but you know what you're going to play. And, we know how to activate all our pieces. Okay, c5. Let's continue to develop our pieces. Bishop g2, castle the king. And now our king is just safe. I mean, he's developing his pieces very well, though. But step one is now out the way. We already have this position. Step two is to play d3, knight d2, and e4. Okay, he's developing. Let's continue with the plan. H6 is a nice move because now if I put my bishop here or my knight here, he's able to pull the bishop all the way back to H7. So that's really nice. Now I'm trying to play E4. He has 3 pieces on the square. I only have 2. So we need to apply or add more pieces to the square. I'm thinking rook to E1. I don't think I'm going to be able to go E4 and F4 based on this setup that he's playing. So rook E1. Another trick that is in this position is if I play E4 takes takes, he's able to play knight takes because once I take on E4, he first trade the queens, then take back on E4. So I still may have to play C3 and queen C2. He just voluntarily pulled the bishop back, which is a fine move. I'm thinking of even C4 here because if he takes and I take, the bishop is active. But let's just play C3. Let's stick to the regular stuff. Queen C2 and E4 is an idea. I'm not really comfortable with Queen C2 though because it will be on the same line as his bishop. Okay, now that he puts the bishop on D6, I'm just going to play E4 because he's not able to do the whole idea anymore. Plus, I'm threatening to fork, so guy has to be very careful here. He took. Let's take back. E5 is the threat, and I'm also trying to play knight c5, hit the bishop. I'm expecting queen c7, knight c. Anything that protects the e5 square is good for black here. Okay, he pulls the bishop back, safe to first. And I don't want to put my queen on the same line as his bishop. And if I play e5, the knight gets the d5 square. So let's put the queen on e2 or b3. I like b3 because it's just a forcing move. Like the whole idea is to develop all the pieces. There's just one thing I'm not sure of. Because how am I going to move this knight if he has 2 pieces attacking the pawn? Queen c7. What if I go knight e5 and he goes queen takes and I take? Knight e5, queen takes c5, queen takes b7. If he castle, we take. Queen back. My queen could be getting trapped. e5, there's knight d5. c4. Oh, but then there's knight b4. So maybe I need to play a3. So that way, once I play e5, knight d5, c4, the knight is not able to go to b4. Because once the knight goes to b4, he's threatening knight d3, he's threatening bishop c2. And after e5, knight d5, c4, knight b6, I can now play knight e4. And my pieces are going to be a bit more active. So he castle, we go e5. Also, my bishop is very active on this diagonal. And my queen is applying pressure to b7. So could also have some tactics, but no time right now. This light squared bishop that he has, very strong piece. Very strong piece. Let's hit the knight though. Like, if you notice that your opponent has their knights in the center of the board, it's usually important that you try to decentralize those knights because the knights could be very, very strong. Okay, knight back to b6. I was actually thinking about playing knight e4 here, but then he plays knight c6 and there's 2 attackers. Unless I have a tactics, like, for example, knight takes, queen takes, bishop f4. I mean, it doesn't trap the queen or anything. And I'm just going to be down by a pawn. And I'm not going to even have any discovered attacks. Knight e4, let's say knight e4, knight c6. Bishop f4, g5. Let's just assume that I'm provoking a weakness. And then pull the bishop back to, let's say, c1. Because d2 is weird. Knight takes, okay, maybe d2. Knight takes, queen takes. Oh, after queen takes, now we're able to take on g5. So I guess this idea is going to work. So knight e4 centralizes the knight. Bishop f4 after knight c6 guards the pawn. It's very ooh. Okay, I'm in trouble, guys. Because knight c6 also threatens knight a5, and my c4 pawn is too weak. Am I in trouble already? Mm. Luckily. So he's hitting the pawn twice, right? I'm only guarding it once. Let's just play queen c3 and guard the pawn again. Like, let's not go in any weird complex stuff because knight a5 was a really strong threat. Now I'm thinking of b3, bishop b2. Wait, b3, bishop b2, knight d6 is interesting. Bishop f4, knight d6 is interesting. But the question is, if I play bishop f4, will he play g5? Does he has the balls to push pawns on the side that his king is on? g5, I check. Then after check, takes, I hit the bishop. He takes my bishop. I take his bishop. I don't really have a lot of faith in that line though. You need to develop this bishop. All right, how do we develop? How do we develop? All right, let's try h4 first. Because I think my bishop goes to f4. I could prepare some sacks, and it's the only good score for my bishop. Knight to d4 is kind of tricky though. Like knight d4, and he's getting a lot of access in my position. That was the only move I didn't want him to play. Only move. But we have to develop. Where's the knight headed? f3 is the only check. Bishop f4. I'm safe though. Like nothing to be worried about. Like rook to d1 is coming next. Maybe I could even get away with b4. I'm also thinking of playing knight d6 because if the bishop takes and then I take, I hit the queen. That move? That move. Okay, my queen is under attack. Where do we put the queen? c1 is a fork. d2 loses the queen. e3 is a fork. Has to be d3. d3 loses the pawn though. Okay, that move I didn't see. Like this guy's crazy. I might have to play this down and exchange, which is crazy. Let's say queen d3. There's no strong discovered attacks, but knight b2 is just too strong. Hits the queen, hits this pawn, and then if I go back to c3, he go back to a4. And the best I could get from that is a draw. If I go to b1, he takes here. So I'm gonna have to play down the exchange if I want to win. So let's play down the exchange, allow him to fork, play queen e2, and I guess take the rook back on a1, and then from here it's just gonna be chess. But all he needs to do is just trade. All right, my time is also lower than him. Like I glimpsed on the time and I was like, maybe I could flag the guy, but my time is lower than his. I could probably still flag him though, because now the time is equal. It's taking a while to play the fork. Not sure why. Guess he thinks I'm trying to trick him. He took on b2 instead. Guy says he don't even want a fork. He wants the pawn. Well, there's no more forks for you, bro. I'm gonna go rook c1, guard the pawn, defend against the fork. Oh my god. There's knight d3. There's knight takes, or there's knight f5. This is coming. So he gets the fork and the pawn. Yo, my brain. All right, let's go queen b3. We have to play fast because I'm losing on the board. So we have to win on the clock. Okay, we are now forked. Ay, ay, ay. Knight d6 I'm thinking of. But then he just takes it the queen. Once I takes, there's knight takes, takes. Bishop takes, takes, rook takes. There is g4, but then I lose the bishop. Knight d6, take it the queen. Rook takes, knight takes, takes, bishop takes. And then that's just trading too many pieces off the board. Okay, let's just give the guy his exchange. He worked very oh my god, just play, bro. Just need to play. That's all I need to do. Knight d4 is coming next. Okay, oh, don't get forked again, bro. Alright, let's just go here. Alright, I'm gonna put all my trust in my bullet skills. I think you just need to trade, bro. Like if you're winning like this, 3 points, just start trading. Alright, let's start with knight d6. I have to try to keep as many pieces on the board and try to confuse him. Like if he takes, I hit the queen and then I take. Or he's able to take on f3 and whenever. But I know that my time is low here, but I'm gonna put trust in my bullet skills. I'm a 2700 bullet player. a5, good. That's a pawn. Good. Good. If he takes, I take, and everything is safe. All right, so we get one pawn. Still not enough to win on the board, but enough to win on the clock. Queen c5, very smart move. Guys trying to trade. The only thing that we should not do is trade. We should do anything except trading. So let's pull the queen back and apply some pressure to b6. Knight b7 would be nice. You fork me, I fork you. That's the plan. Ooh, we got him. We got him. Knight b7. Hit the queen. No, if knight b7, there's queen d4. Yo. Ay, ay, ay. So we have to play fast. Let's go rook e2. Bishop takes, we take. Now my queen is on the same line as his king. Queen takes c4 is very strong. Bishop takes. Now I'm threatening mate. He's not able to take f6 maybe. And then I'll just pull my bishop back. We both have 30 seconds on the clock. Okay, f6. Let's go to e3. Hit the pawn. Oh my god, this is hanging. Everything is hanging. Ah, he's not able to handle the bullet. That's a queen, bro. Good try, though. You were winning, but you weren't able to handle the bullet. All right, let's now attack the pawn. Okay, let's grab. Okay, no, it's just a matter of speed, and I'm winning on the board. Nothing can go wrong here. Nothing can go wrong. Pass pawns must be pushed. Hit the rook. Oh no, I should have taken. What am I doing? Let's keep pushing though. Okay. Now I'm just trying to simplify. 10 seconds to 6 seconds. Yeah, his time is now just running out. That's free. Let's just take. No time, bro. No time. Now I'm just gonna queen the pawn. And he lost. Please subscribe.